to work through Liverpool's pre-season friendly against Leipzig. It says the title of this show is Liverpool Leather Leipzig. John,
I like it.
Do you like it?
Yeah, absolutely. How's that? Consider yourselves leathered.
Would you say stick that in your pipe and smoke it?
Or in your can of Red Bull.
Yeah, stick it in your energy drink and drink it.
Excellent stuff. That's the spirit, Phil. That's what we're going to talk about. Liverpool leathering Leipzig. We've got Darwin Nunez as well. We've got your comments coming through in the chat later on this tour live, John. What are the wonderful inserts you've got for us?
So we've got James Higgins, who came in to see us a few weeks ago to talk about a football agency they set up with a little bit of a difference. It's focusing on mental health and player well-being and things like that. Really interesting chat with James, who is a Red, who came in on the day Mo Salah signed a new contract as well. So that was interesting for him. How quickly he became the least important person happening. But he was fine with it. He was made up. He's a Red. And then... also, I spoke to Fran from Red Rum Club, who are a band we've supported for a while, and we've had him before. They're doing a big US tour, so they've done some gigs in America, but they're doing a big tour in September and October. So, talking about the excitement of going to conquer America with the guitar.
Conquering America sounds absolutely phenomenal.
Or at least having a nice time.
Well, I think conquering. I think that there needs to be some element of conquer.
Yeah.
If you go to America, you've got to have conquered it. That's the way in which it works. The other thing that we've got coming up as well in part 4 of Tour Live, or part 2 if you're listening to it as live, is a conversation around the members' tickets sales, the way in which that's changed. We've got Adam and Phil in for that, as they have relatively differing views, although I suspect it will remain quite friendly, given everything as it were. No, Adam, are we saying no?
No, definitely not. I've already sent a horse's head round to his house just when he goes outside.
Adam's been drinking vodka since 7 a.m.
He's getting himself Larry.
Yeah, in preparation for this, Hightown's never seen so many horses' heads as there is currently knocking around outside Phil's gaff. That is to come, but we will start off talking about Liverpool leathering Leipzig all the way through on this one. The obvious thing to talk about, Adam, is the fellow we paid a lot of money for to score a lot of goals. Turns up last night, plays one half of football, and scores a lot of goals. He gets 4. He could have had more. The second and third are such brilliant finishes.
We did a show a couple of weeks ago, Neil, where one of the questions, it might have been Tour Live, I can't remember one of the others, but anyway, a question was about who you wanted to see perform well in pre-season, and my answer was Nunez, because what I want more than anything else is everybody kind of going, oh, they've sold Mane, he's going to be important, now they've brought somebody else in, and then he scores loads of goals and they sort of go, nah, what are we going to do now, because we can't mock him for it. And then we've sort of seen that play out in the ludicrous highlight reels from other pre-seasons that opposition fans have made, kind of going, oh my God, they've spent £100 million. No, we haven't, on this fella, blah, blah, all that sort of stuff. And then now he's gone, and he looked sharp. I think everybody with half a brain was watching them and get those reels and going, why have you put together these reels of him looking really sharp but not quite finding the back of the net? It's a bit mad that you think that's something to mock us with. And then this time he's just gone, and I can also hit the back of the net as well, so I'll score 1, and everyone goes, oh, good, he scored, I scored 2, and you go, yeah, brilliant. No, they scored 4, and everyone else going, oh, come on now, we wanted more highlight reels of him missing stuff. So it's just lovely. And as you say, they were really well taken. They were all different types of goals, obviously, because when the first one's a penalty, you're a bit like, oh, good, he scored a penalty. It also looked like he might not score it at one point. It was really close, but he did, and then he's obviously just scored the other 3 totally different ways, completely different styles of goals, and just now he's added that looking really sharp. He's added goals to that, which is exciting.
John, for me, what grabbed me about it was, he's a number 9 who theoretically should be on the periphery of the action, given the way in which he plays. And then you couldn't keep him out the action. And that was the most exciting thing about the whole half of football. Now, we won't always play sides that are as accommodating as Leipzig, because they were trying to go through their pre-season. They're trying to play with their principles. They were high line, high press at times. But the key thing was we just constantly had him involved, and therefore had him involved around the penalty area. He could get 6. Genuinely, he's not far away from being able to get 6. And to me, that was one of the things that was the most exciting part. Obviously, that comes secondary to the fact that he still scored 4, and 4 is a lot. We have a song about someone scoring 4.
And he didn't do 1 off, did he?
Yeah.
So unlucky, Rushy. But I think you're right, and I think he's always looking to be dangerous, isn't he? And a lot of our forwards are sort of similar to that, but he's a very different one again. And the amount of times that he was stood in a similar position to how he gets his third one, is gets you excited for how many goals he could get, really, because, I think, Firmino and Jota, when they sort of play that role, doing it in a slightly different way and contribute so much and have been brilliant players for Liverpool. But having that natural striker's instinct, and I'm with Adam, I thought his movement was excellent, particularly in that first pre-season game where people were sort of trying to write him off. And his teammates are getting to know him, but you can see that understanding growing, and the more that understanding grows, the more he's naturally sort of in the game, really, because the passes become quicker into him. It becomes more and more like instinct, really. I'll get the ball and I know what type of run that the forward's going to make. So they're learning about each other already, and I thought that's what you saw. I didn't think he played necessarily any better than he had done in the first couple of games. I think, you're right to say the opposition, the way they played sort of helped us a little bit in terms of, the space was there, but also his teammates are just learning about him. They learn about him in training, they learn about him in this game. So, a couple of times we nearly scored that third goal again, and he was there, and he was, had a bit of a smile on his face as if to say, that this is coming, really. The second one is excellent, and you can see him scoring plenty like that as well. But that sort of striker's finish for the third one, he nearly, you're talking about him couldn't have 60, that nearly happened sort of a couple of more times again, and it was sort of good defending why it didn't, really. So, yeah, we got to see it. We got to see what it looks like. We got to see when it works, and it very much worked last night.
The really interesting thing, Phil, about the whole friendly is getting to see what it looks like in a number of different ways for a couple of different players. We'll come on to talk about others apart from Darwin over the course of this segment of the show, but getting to see what it looks like with Darwin, there was little things that you got to see, I thought, around them going long, looking to hit him, and then Salah going and playing 9. So it goes into Salah's area, but Salah and him almost flip positions as Liverpool look to go more direct, and Salah then almost looking to get beyond in one sense. Then you saw what it looks like after Salah goes off. If Elliott plays on that side, and then Nunez really is a pure 9 who's looking to make all this sort of movement, and it makes it easier, I think, for other players then to play in the more sort of Salah, in inverted commas, or Mane-ish roles as more traditional footballers, because he's doing all of that. You could see how it looked at link-ups from midfield, where the space is, and I thought you could see that in both halves. I thought Firmino was really bright in the first half as well. It was much more so than the friendlies that we saw in Bangkok and Singapore, where it was three lots of 30 for the most part. I thought you really got to see where the tweaks are beginning to be for Liverpool, and especially where Darwin's concerned.
Yeah, the closer it gets to the actual first game of the season, the more you want to see that kind of thing, don't you? Like the first friendly is basically it's a waste of everyone's time, really, from a watching point of view, because all it is getting lads 30 minutes in the legs, getting them a bit of football, and you see as it weans, as time goes on, they go from 30 to 45, and someone obviously plays 60 last night. I think that the actual football looked different to me, specifically in the second half, in which I'm glad about, because I don't think you can just play the same football all the time. And that's one of the things I think Darwin Nunez, I nearly called him, and Darwin Nunez brings you. He's just very different to what we had. I think you got to see it. That, all right, they play with different players, but him and Firmino are just very different, aren't they? In fact, they didn't play with different players. Nunez had 15 minutes with the other two, didn't he? Yep. So they do the same thing very, very differently. And one thing Nunez does that Firmino doesn't is he enables you to make the pitch a bit bigger, because that ball over the top that's there for him, it just isn't there for Firmino, because he's not really got the pace and the power and the sort of ability to hold the ball up. Not hold the ball up, but sort of get in behind and move a defender back 10 yards. He wants it to feet, he wants to drop off, he wants to get everyone involved, which is great, but there becomes a point where the football match is just happening in a really small part of the pitch. Now, with Nunez, he's not going to be able to do that anywhere near as well as Firmino is, but he's going to do something different. I mean, you saw the start of that last night. I mean, there was a brief period when you did actually see him on the left, which was quite funny, because I think me and Jake did the gutter with Rob yesterday. We both said that the thing about the left thing was a complete blag and you just never see it, and proved us wrong in about, 9 hours, something like that. So that was also good to see, and that there's a little bit of flexibility and fluidity about what they're doing when they're on the pitch. And it was weird that the second half was almost a bit more interesting than the first half, given that team in the first half is probably 10 of the 11 that are going to play against Fulham, I would think, and the one that isn't was the goalkeeper. So you would like to be going, this first half was amazing, but you got more the second half when you saw Elliott, who was a bit further forward. You saw Carvalho, who was great. You saw Nunez, who was obviously scoring 4 goals and being great. And obviously
4 goals.
4, yeah. How many?
4, mate.
4. Right, good, thank you. And then there was stuff like
It's the same number as Everton conceded against Minnesota, Phil. If you're looking for a trigger in your head,
that's a good reminder. That I remember that's probably the same amount of points Everton will have at Christmas as well. But yeah, there was so much going on in the second half, wasn't there? It was. I almost enjoy that part of pre-season more when you get to watch the players that they're slightly new and young, and they're going to offer a little bit more. And it was interesting. I thought there were like 5-6 really good performances second half.
There were 5 or 6 critical performances second half, John. There was Bajcetic, who comes in and plays number 6, looked pretty impressive. I thought there was going to be possibly one of those games where he comes in and plays number 6, but he doesn't do much because everyone plays around him, but they don't. They play through him a fair bit of the time as well. I thought Henderson played well in there in the second half. I think it's interesting that Carvalho and Elliott, both of whom we sort of see as potentially being midfielders for Liverpool this season, both play in the wide areas ahead of the midfield. I thought Jones did well. It was Shimikas, your friend, put some good balls in, repeatedly digs the ball out. You know, repeatedly there was bits and pieces in there where I thought, yeah, these all look good. It was a real. There is the idea, I think, every pre-season of the pre-season friendly that really gets you excited for the season, and I think this was the one for me there. And it isn't just because the main fella scores 4 goals. It was just sort of looking at it all, going, yeah, I want to watch these play football in the flesh. I want to see some of this.
Yeah, it's a real realization or reminder, should I say, of just how many excellent footballers there are at this football club. And like Phil, I would expect something very close to that first half team against Fulham. You know, you could, maybe if Darwin keeps scoring 4 goals in a game, then he might get a look in. But you know, you'd expect you won't be shocked if you had that 10. Out there. But then in that second 11, there's so many exciting players. There's so many young players putting their hands up, or established players. The club captain, of course, is in that second half team and plays well. Like you say, Chimikas comes in left hand side, and there's no drop in quality whatsoever. In fact, if anything, his delivery into the box was sort of even better in this game. And yeah, Bajcetic was just phenomenal, and he's an interesting young lad in that he was the last one, I think, before Brexit that they managed to sort of sneak in. Liverpool can't make signings like that anymore, which is another reason.
Not just Liverpool.
No. Yeah, that's the rule.
Feels harsh, but the Tories are in, so we could have got a cop for it.
The section they don't talk about in the Northern Ireland Protocol.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Where do we draw the borders here? I mean, you can make arguments for the rights and wrongs of poaching young talent from the top academies around Europe, of course. But Liverpool stuck a couple of inches before. I think he was the very last one, and he came in as a centre half, and they've been working on converting him into a 6. But considering he was a converted centre half playing 6, he was popping up in 8 a lot, wasn't he? He was like he was really going on midfield. You say, watch a bit of this. I'll play 10, mate. And so he was pressing high. He was a confident boy, and like you said, Neil. So once the players sort of realised, how confident he was and just how good he was, really. I mean, I'm sure they've been realising in training. They were giving him a lot of the ball, and he was starting a lot of attacks. He was spraying passes both sides, and it wasn't his toughest challenge defensively, I would say, by that stage. So that's something we need to see more evidence was in the future. But in terms of on the ball and just how big he is as well, I got really excited there. I thought we might have another one here. We might have another first team player that we weren't talking about at all 2 weeks ago.
What I thought was quite interesting, sorry, is that he's the only kid who played, really, wasn't he? Because I don't think you can really class Carvalho and Elliott as kids whilst they're only 19.
Yeah.
Now it feels like that he was the only non-first team squad member.
Yeah, the only one he expected to play under 23s next season.
Yeah, was the only one. He's the only one who got all the way through, and you think he's done enough to play Salzburg again. At the complete other end of the scale, Phil, I thought that Milner was ridiculous at right back. Like, he shouldn't be that good at right back. It was a tremendous performance from him in terms of just turning up and just doing all the right back for 45 minutes.
Do you think he was thinking, if I'm that good at this, they'll realise I'm still really good and I can play in midfield instead?
Yeah, because it's just tackling and passing, isn't it? Just tackling and passing.
Honestly, if I can play here, I can play in midfield. Honestly, it'll be fine. It'll be absolutely fine. Yeah, he's just the model professional, isn't he? He's great.
But it's interesting, Phil, on that. Just genuinely on that. It's interesting that they put him in there, and they still wanted to use Gomez left-hand side at centre-half, and they didn't try and do anything with Phillips or do anything anywhere else. I do wonder whether or not for the start of the campaign, Milner might actually be the substitute right-back, as odd as that is, until Ramsey settles, gets over the injury, proves his fitness. I do wonder whether or not you may occasionally see Milner come on and do some right-back.
Yeah, I think when you obviously see the subs, you obviously see the team, you see the subs, and you know that there's going to be a large number of changes in the second half, whether it's happening at half time or 60 or whatever, it's going to happen. And I was sort of looking at it thinking, who's the right back here? And the thing I hadn't considered Bajcetic as playing in the middle of midfield, so I hadn't even considered that it might be Milner, because it just looked really obviously like the midfield second half would be Milner, Henderson and Curtis Jones.
Yeah.
And I was like, will it be Mbeya? Is it going to be Sepp van den Berg? Is there going to be a thing where Phillips plays centre back and Joe Gomez plays right back? And I wasn't expecting Milner to play right back, so that sort of, it feels like it tells you a story about what they are thinking of at the start of the season. And I suppose the thing with the right back is that we've only got one midweek game, haven't we, before September, so it's not quite as important in the early stages.
Just that Newcastle one,
yeah. So you can probably get starts out of Trent, and obviously with the 5 subs, it might be a situation where you can have 3 games, one after the hour, and you've brought him off, and he's basically had 90 minutes taken out of his legs just by coming off 3 times.
Yeah, and there's every chance that we see that. Adam, it's good to be excited, and it's good that when you make these big signings, you get the moment of being able to become really excited about it without idiots having to do compilations or anything like that. It is the idea of a direction of travel, I think, and that's the main thing we can all take from the game. There's a direction of travel now for the rest of this pre-season from a Liverpool point of view. We're going to get to see certain players. Carvalho's been mentioned, Elliott's been mentioned, Bajcetic has been mentioned, but the big one obviously will be and has to be Darwin in amongst all of this. And I think that's now, when the game's coming up against Salzburg, he's the one you want to see. There's a comment in here that someone wants us to start him alongside Salah and Diaz, which I think is interesting. Come the start of the campaign and maybe see if you can unleash them against City. I think Darwin could well make Diaz's life a little bit easier as well, because Diaz still doesn't look to me quite as Jota / Mane coming off the left around the idea of getting himself to sort of 20 goals all comps. Now I want him to prove me wrong, obviously, but if Darwin's in there and he's offering that as well, then it'll give Diaz a little bit more time to get himself settled. And also Darwin does love to pull left too. Being able to be excited about this lad's good.
It is, and I think I'm not as kind of into transfers as Rob Gutman is, right?
How could you be?
Who is, obviously, but that's why I don't win awards. So I think the thing, but obviously, once they've signed, like I'm not bothered about. I'm not. Like I'm like the reverse of a teenage boy. I'm not bothered about the chase. Like once we've got the signing, I want to know what's going to happen. That's what I'm excited by. What they're going to do on the pitch. That's what I want to see, and I want to see them perform well, right? And so there's nothing I want more than to see a player who's sticking the ball in the back of the net, in his case, that's performing really well in the case of Carvalho, that's doing the things that you kind of want them to do. And I think there's that is really what he's shown with these, 4 goals against a decent team. Let's not,
Champions League team.
Exactly. We've got to put all the usual caveats around it in that it's pre-season, etc., etc. But they're still a good team, and they're still doing, they're still trying to get up to fitness and everything else. They don't want to be conceding 4 to 1 player. So, and in the space of one half. So it's not what we want to see is them performing on the pitch. And but by doing that, and by, as you said before, working in a way that interacting really well with Salah and, moving position, making Phil look an idiot, all those things that we all love. But you get to really enjoy
very much so, yeah.
Seeing what they're bringing to the table and what they're going to bring to the table moving forward, and that's something to go brilliant. Yeah, of course we want to see them against City, because there's nothing we want to do more this season than give City a bloody nose before a ball has been kicked in a kind of a serious game. So if we could go to there and he scored 2 against their defence or whatever, it gives us a slight mental edge, which is daft because it's only the Community Shield. But it's the kind of thing you want to see to get ready for the forthcoming season.
Absolutely exciting stuff indeed. Salzburg to come. We hot mic'd the game against Leipzig last night, and we'll be hot micing the game against Salzburg. And we're threatening to hot mic the Charity Shield, aren't we? Community Shield.
Yeah. All being well with a good headwind.
Yeah, with a good headwind, if we can make the technology work, we're threatening to do that, and we will go from there. So that is to come. All of that on the hot mic with the Anfield Wrap to come with those friendlies, which should be absolutely fascinating. At the minute, the manager is working them into the ground. It is fair to say we can relax, though. We can enjoy ourselves. If you listen to this as a podcast coming up now, you've got a couple of inserts, Red Run Club, and I've forgotten James's name again.
James.
That's the spirit. Excellent stuff again. I've forgotten James's name. James. Perhaps his surname.
I've got Richards in my head, but that's someone else. He's
That's
from
someone
PPD
else, yeah.
Football.
Here he is anyway. He's talking to John, and then there's Red Rum Club, and then we'll be back to talk about member sales tickets and maybe a little bit of transfers as James Pearce has laughed the Mateus Nunez story out of court. Back in a second or two. 2023, Andy, whatever you are, we're back on live as we work this sort of stuff out. Don't forget 2023, John. It's next year and the time that the break comes within this show. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much to anyone who came to see us in Bangkok and Singapore. I'll say it one last time. And London the week before that. Excellent stuff. Really good to see absolutely everybody throughout all of those engagements and bits and pieces. Download the app if you haven't done so already. Brilliant post-match stuff last night after the game against Leipzig. And we are just gearing up. We're just getting minutes in our legs. Imagine what we're capable of come the first game of the season against Fulham. It's what it's all about at this stage. Just trying to see where you're up to, John. How are you feeling about things? Do you think you're about 70% at the minute?
75, I would say, Neil. Yeah, I was surprised myself last night. I was sharper than I thought.
Excellent stuff.
Me and Darwin outperforming expectations
at this stage.
Yeah,
not in general.
At
this stage, yeah. We've all got to get ourselves, got to find our sea legs again for what will be a phenomenal campaign to come. Download the app. You can use the tokens on there. Listen to last night's stuff, or save those tokens, cherish them, use them at a later date, and instead enjoy the free stuff such as TAW Live going into the rest of the season. I said a couple of weeks back, and I will continue to say it. By the time we get to the start of the campaign, we will be setting this show at a specific time. I am sort of conscious that I might miss the first one because I'm doing an event in London with Phil Thompson at the King's Arms pub in Fulham. If you want to come down to that, that'd be absolutely phenomenal. So I'm speaking to Phil Thompson there on the Friday before the game against Fulham, and we're going to try and do both the Pink, the post-match audio show, and the post-match video from Fulham after the first game of the season. To which means I also ask this: any spares? Moving ourselves along then to talk about on spares, on tickets. Liverpool have changed, John, the way in which the system's working for members coming into this season around the credits. It's something that we're in a number of WhatsApp groups, and there's been a number of exchanges about it. I said this would make a good show. It's a good discussion. I think, and I felt for a while, I think the Liverpool membership schemes, it's a difficult thing. A lot of people who have access to season tickets or are season ticket holders didn't like last season when for finals that members who'd been to every home game had the same chance of tickets as season ticket holders did who hadn't been to any of the aways when it came to the finals. I was sort of all right with it because the members scheme has to have value for members. I think that's an important principle, and it's something that I think matters massively. If you're going to charge people for membership, you've got to be able to add as many sort of ancillary benefits as humanly possible because people are paying a fair bit of money for membership and tickets still remain difficult to come by. All of this is an access question. This season, though, there is the problem of what's happening as credits are moving, as we're beginning to use stuff off the back of phones. First and foremost, I want to sort of frame this as it is a difficult conversation, and I think that there's going to be stages towards changing who is in the ground, why they're in the ground, where different phases of this are up to. I'm not saying it's easy, but simultaneously, I don't like to see members be undermined.
No, but I don't think they necessarily are by this, and other people might sort of disagree. But I think what they're trying to find a solution to is what is the fairest way, and what is the fairest way of rewarding loyalty, but also encouraging people or feeling people are able to get tickets for games, and it's a very difficult situation. You have a number of season ticket holders, which is obviously set in stone and doesn't look like it's sort of gonna move, and then you have these extra tickets that are for sale, and how you sell them and how you reward loyalty, but also how you try and make it. You don't want to create another closed shop. Like season tickets is a bit of a closed shop.
It's a massive closed shop.
Yeah, let's be honest. Away tickets are a closed shop.
Even bigger closed shop.
Even bigger one. And so, although they're easy to transfer, obviously, because the tend to be paper. But then if members just becomes another sort of one, then what do the football club do in terms of, how does LFC #LFC family work if it's a family you can't join, and that's also what it feels like. And as you say, Neil, they sell these memberships, so people go, "Great, I bought a membership. How do I get buy tickets?" And you're like, "Well, you can't." To be honest with you, or it's very, very difficult, and so it is hard. I understand what they've done with the what they've tried to do with the membership, with the idea of, well, let's actually give the credit to the person who's going to the game rather than the person who just happens to have been successful in a random ballot, which is what some of them are, or also, as like this morning, joined the queue and got a better queue position. If that's the only thing you've done and nothing else, then I understand why someone would, including the Liverpool Football Club, would make the argument that actually, the person, let's give the credit to the person who's ultimately paid for the ticket and eventually and sort of go to the game. I get that. The problem is, and it's something that I know Adam is going to come on to talk about, is that there's having a rule and it's sort of making sense, and then there's how it works in practice. And I think that's where, you start to see problems and it starts to fall down, and you start to see, little bits around, well, actually, they've tried to create a fairer system now, but is it actually fair? We're still living with COVID, whether people like it or not, and we're still living in the reality of COVID still existing, but also the knock-on effects financially and to sort of everyone at the moment, really. We can't, and I felt like last year sort of catered for that, and then this year we've got, that's sort of all gone now, and so that's sort of a thing. Yeah, but we caveat all that with it is really, really difficult, and I'm in a nice position where I've got a season ticket and I've got about 30 away credits, which means I can go to most, but not quite Fulham yet. But I think, so I'm one of the ones who gets to sit a little bit pretty, and I'm always conscious of my, privilege, in these chats. And I always try and listen to as many different people as possible. And already I've from being on Twitter and forums and stuff, I've sort of, and listening to the people who are going to talk now when I shut up, realise sort of other things and how it is more complicated and how it's dead hard.
Adam, talk about other things and how it is more complicated.
Look, I think the first thing to say is we all, I think, and anybody with a sensible head appreciates that it's difficult, right? There's no easy answer, obviously, because if there was, we'd all be, as Johnson said, we'd all be sitting pretty. And, we also have to acknowledge that Liverpool could create a 1 billion seat stadium and there'd be somebody moaning that they're too high up. Like there will always be complaints, right? We have to acknowledge that. We have to accept that, and that's totally fair. What I don't really understand at the moment is how the system they've created is fair to members, right? That's my biggest thing, because I could legitimately follow all of the rules that Liverpool have put in place, go to 19 home games in the forthcoming season and get no credits for it. 0 credits. So next season, when they're saying, right, these ones are for people who've got 13 credits, you're guaranteed a ticket. And I'm going, well, I went to all 19 home games. I went to all 19 home games.
You've got a record of it from my phone.
But exactly, it's on my ticket. It's not on anybody. It's on my fan card or my whatever they call it. But I've got no credits according to you because I've bought them from a season ticket holder. Now I understand a little bit like opposing counsel. Phil's going to come and say to you that they can't give you season ticket holders credits because like you'd end up in a situation where you've got 29,000 people with members tickets saying, well, I've got 19 credits, and you've also got all of the season ticket holders going, I've got that many credits, and the ground's not big enough to cope with everybody. And I get that, I understand it, but it's not fair to members. That's where's the fairness in that? And I also don't really understand what they're doing it, like why they're doing it. Like I feel like it's a little bit to do with touts, maybe, but the touts will just do what they always do. They'll find a way around it. That like what happened in the ground when you had physical cards was the touts would give somebody a card, they'd use it to get in, and then the tout would go up and collect it from them once they were inside the ground. I saw it time and time again on the Kop. Well, now they'll just be going around and collecting smartphones. You'll have touts with 10 smartphones in the pockets or whatever, and the club won't really be able to do anything about it because how do you do it? And so, unless they start getting to the point where they're saying your photo ID has to be on your fan card, which might be where they go, but everybody will go, absolutely not. That's ridiculous. So yes, it's really complicated, but members are paying money for something that's basically impossible to get anything from. This morning, when this load of sales, those load of tickets went on, I logged in. I was 59,000th in the queue. What is the point in that? Like, I'm not 59,000th. It's all just a bit mad. And I know, by the way, or at least I've been told that I could get a membership that I don't have to pay for that would still let me apply to get the tickets and all this sort of stuff. But then. Well, then I feel a little bit like, well, look, I've got no problem paying. I don't mind paying, and you get a little bottle and stuff, and a little badge from the club.
Maybe a mug
for the
costly to post though mugs, as we know. Here.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. So my payment is getting the postage sorted, so I don't mind doing it. But I've literally not got a ticket now for the forthcoming first half of the campaign or whatever it is. I had one last season. That obviously is counted for nothing. I knew it was going to count for nothing anyway. But the other thing that I'll just say is, and because John mentioned COVID before, and I think it's really important to sort of touch on this. If I had got a ticket, right, through my membership, and I got COVID, the socially responsible thing would be to say, I'm going to give somebody else my ticket. Because if I don't go, if I go, I might give somebody else COVID. But if I don't go, I'm not getting the credit for that ticket that I've bought. So I'm going to have to go to the ground with COVID or let somebody else take my phone or whatever, right? Which is basically defeats the point of them asking me to be the person that goes in the first place. So people are not going to make socially responsible choices because they don't have the ability to say, it's all right, I won't lose this credit. But instead, if I buy a credit from the club that comes from a season ticket holder, I go to the game on my own card, do not get a credit. So the only way I can get a credit is by doing it through the members' sale, that there were 59,000 people in front of me for about 25 tickets. It's just madness, and I don't understand who it's fair to, other than season ticket holders who are all delighted with the whole situation.
Phil.
So the fairness thing is a fair point. It's just a slight problem with the transferring of a season ticket to a member, because members have been going, or non-members have been going, other people's season tickets since like forever. Like that's just something that's always happened, and no one's ever got a credit for it. So it's not like this is a new thing. No one's ever gone, well, I use this season ticket, his season ticket, his season ticket, and now I've got 10 credits. It's not like it's a new thing that they're suddenly penalising someone for. You just don't know who the season ticket is if you buy the thing off the club. So it's not necessarily anything new. It's not something that they've gone, right, we need to stop this from happening because it was happening without reward anyway.
But you've never lost credit to either, though, Phil.
That is also fair. But this is a sort of slight flaw of the credit system, and this is also where the credit system will start to get ironed out and become fairer, because the credit system ultimately has got ridiculous. It came in, I reckon it came in about 20 years ago first with away tickets, didn't it? It was about 2003, 2004, and it sort of built from there. And it built from there basically when people realised that you got an Istanbul ticket with 3 or 4 credits.
Yeah.
And then
it went down to 4.
People were like, hang on. Now, if you remember, like Liverpool versus Monaco and Liverpool versus Deportivo La Coruña that season, there were 15,000 empty seats inside Anfield.
Yeah.
Now, that just wouldn't happen now. So they had to obviously do something to fill those seats. And what they did to fill those seats was say, right, well, we have this credit system, and people got wise to it and went, well, if I want to go to that semi-final, I've got to go to these group games now. And what that's done is, I mean, even third-round League Cup games, they're full all the time. Full. So in that respect, it has worked. What it has done is that it also means that people for a long time have been using these credits to not actually go to the match, and they've been going, oh yeah, you can have this ticket, you can have this ticket. Everyone who has credits has done it. It's not like a criticism, it's just the way it works, isn't it? You know, you have a ticket, you can't go, you give it to somebody else. Now that's a bit of a ridiculous situation. There were people ultimately in Paris who didn't go to a Champions League game all season and went to the final.
Can I ask as a point of order here?
Yeah, sure.
Just because I need to understand from either of you. If you buy the ticket and you don't go the ground, do you lose the credit?
Yeah,
just to be clear for me and for the listeners.
So one of the reasons for that, by the way, is the sheer number of empty seats there are in the ground. You know, the night Liverpool play Barcelona, do you know how many unused tickets there were at the ground?
Go on.
1,000. There were 1,000 seats just empty that somebody else could have had. Now, that's not a situation that's benefiting anyone. There's 1,000 people there who could have experienced one of the greatest nights ever, but couldn't just because the ticket wasn't there.
Yeah,
because there's no. If you sent the ticket back, you did actually lose the credit. I think in that kind of situation, if you give the ticket back, so those people would have disqualified themselves for final tickets.
I don't understand how that's going to be different though. So if this situation was in place at the time, and I had a ticket and then I got ill, I'm still not going. So there's still not be anybody in my seat.
No, but you could return. But you would theoretically return the ticket to the club now because you've got no reward. You're just basically paying £50 for an empty seat. What's the point of that? Whereas in old times, you could have paid £50 and you gain the credit. So there's no motivation to get the ticket back on someone
but
else.
at the same time, if I've got ill, if I've fallen ill or whatever on the day, like say I've got flu or I've DMV or whatever, I'm not going to be going, I better jump on and sell me tickets to the club. That's going to be the last thing on my mind. There's still going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of empty seats for certain games because people just can't go, or they give it to somebody else who gets stuck in traffic, or any number of things that won't change because of this. But I'll have lost a credit.
Yeah, they will.
So if I buy a ticket,
we'll minimize this because people will eventually just lose all that. Like, there's some people, there are season ticket holders, there are members who are basically transferring every single ticket every week, which isn't right. Absolutely. As you as a member, like, there's a member gets 19 credits, can go to Manchester United and Everton at home, sell the other 17, and that's that. That's the other. Someone else goes to 17, they get nothing out of it. Now, how is this right? This is a system that needs fixing.
It's the same. Basically. The situation is still the same, though. But if I was buying off a season ticket holder, and again, I do appreciate it's difficult to figure out how to give a season ticket holders, because they don't have credits, obviously, but how to give the credit for going to the game to somebody. But it is just a daft system whereby if I buy a ticket, can't go to sell it to somebody else, I lose the credit. If I buy a ticket from a season ticket holder, I don't get a credit. Basically, I can't get a credit.
And the season ticket holder doesn't lose the credits either. Whatever.
The season ticket holder doesn't lose the credits because they're a season ticket holder, and there's no way for them to lose a credit in the current system. So all that happens is members lose, and unless you happen to be the person that's in the queue in the first, basically, let's be honest, 20,000 people who log on to the system to go to a match, you're not getting a credit. Because all the other season tickets, the people who are the first 20,000 they can just. But, sorry, I'll tell a slight lie. It's not about a queue at that stage. You register your interest, and then the club draws out how many people are going to go to whatever games. So there will be some people that will have registered their interest for all. I think, as somebody who had no credits to their name, I think there were 9 games I could register my interest for. Was it 10? I could say it's 10. So
9, sorry, 9, because you wouldn't have had the 4+ for Man City. So yes, right.
Yeah, exactly. So there was somebody who will have got 9 tickets there, right? Somebody will have got from the ballot drawn 9 tickets. That's possible.
It was 1 billion to 1, though.
It would have been loads, but it's possible. I got no tickets. So there isn't, like, as far as we're aware, the club hasn't explained how and why the draw works, how it's fair, how the people who've got no credits whatsoever, how it's all shared out between them. We don't know. All I know is whatever happens, I lose out.
The season ticket points, I think, Phil, is the bit where this gets, well, it is complicated, full stop, or where it gets more complicated. So, for instance, I'm quite open about the fact that the ticket that I go the game on, which is close to you, isn't in my name; it's through someone else. I tend to go to the vast majority of games in that seat, although it was a bit weird last year at times because tickets were moving around a little bit easier. But on the whole, in a normal season, I go to the vast majority of games in and around that seat, and then go from there. And that's being passed along to me on a very regular basis, it's worth saying. But we've got an arrangement, and as far as I'm concerned, morally, to me, it's all absolutely above board. And I'd be livid if, for instance, the person, I'm not going to name who it is, but if they began to be threatened with losing their season ticket because they're not taking it up. But the flip side of this is and he'd be livid as well. But this is back to an access question, in that he's got that ticket, and part of what he's done is he's sort of passed it along to me, and I'm there all the time. And that's why this is really, really hard. Because someone's made the point before, as you were speaking, when you were talking about, if people can't go, what happens? What's the ramification of it moving along? And they were saying, well, that doesn't happen to season ticket holders. And that's where this does become complicated and does become hard, I think it's fair to say, because there are people who, the very thing that you described, there are some season ticket holders, not many, but there will be some season ticket holders who are quite relaxed about the idea of, well, I'll go to Man United, I'll go to Everton, I might do Chelsea, and I'll shift the rest on. And as this currently is, that's not being addressed. I wondered about all of this, Phil, and I don't know how you feel, but I think that this is Liverpool creating a road through the next 5 years, and this is the first step.
100%, that's exactly what it is.
But at the minute, I can understand Adam's point of view of, so it's us who get shafted first. The ones who are already pretty shafted by a lot of this in the first place, we get shafted again. That's the way this works. That's the priority, is it here? And that is, they've not stripped the hard plaster off first, not least because the hard plaster possibly involves someone like me going berserk because it made my life a lot harder as well. Just sort of know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, they know people share season tickets, and they are, by all accounts, they're okay with the concept of people sharing season tickets. That's not something that they are going to clamp down on or have any plans to. What their issue would be is if someone's using the ticket twice a season, leaving it empty or passing it on. That is something that they, I think, over time will look at trying to move away from. There's another comment there, and I'd forgotten about this, that they released when they released all the updated information. This is exactly the comment. 53% of members' tickets, and that's absolutely spot on. It's not just about people getting ill. That's what is it? I think it's 12,000 tickets a game. So that's what. How many thousand tickets is that? That's like 120,000 tickets that are getting transferred over the course of a season from people who bought them for the club to somebody else. And whilst what you say
just to jump in, Phil, sure. Apparently that's overall. There was certain tickets or certain types of tickets that was near 70 or 80%.
Yeah, absolutely. And whilst there's a thing about that being some of this being unfair on members, those 53% of tickets, which is what, over 100,000 tickets, are transferred to people that people know. Now, me and you, John, were both sorting for various reasons, both ways. We were sorting tickets out of quite a few people last season just because there were a lot of spares from people we know. And that was, when you think about it, it's nice to be able to help someone out for a ticket, but it's a ridiculous situation when someone is able to get a ticket because they know someone who knows someone who knows someone. That isn't how it should work, really, and that is unfair on a lot of members. You know, you look at
but it's also the case with season tickets as well.
Oh no, absolutely. I completely agree. I completely agree. I think you either need to go all or nothing, and there's an argument that you shouldn't be able to transfer your ticket at all. And it's just
on
going
that
to go straight
point as well. The 53% point, I'd love to know what the percentage is of season tickets that get transferred to other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd be amazed if it's not higher, because there are so many people in the situation similar to Neil's of saying, you know, you've basically got my season ticket. To all intents and purposes, that season ticket's yours. I know that there are so few people that I know that have got a season ticket in their own name, but I know loads of people who've got a season ticket. So that sort of thing happens all the time as well. And you know, I think it's really as I say, it's not perfect, but there's so many things. The other big thing that I just wanted to bring up is the fact that one of the things the club's done is do this friends and family thing now. So you've got to be on somebody's friends and family list to be able to send the ticket, to be able to get a ticket off them, right? You've got to be on that, and that list is closing by the start of the season. Right, so
August
I'm on top. I'm off next week, John. I'm basically devoting a day to it. Go ahead.
But that's what it is, right? So you've got to be on somebody's friends and family list in order to be able to get a ticket from them, and that list is closing at the start of the season. So what's going to end up happening is that what you're talking about, Phil, of the closed shop of, you know, oh well, it's great to be able to sort somebody. So that's still going to happen because you've got to be on. So random people are not going to be able to get any tickets. It's only going to be people who already know somebody who can sort them out with a ticket. So it doesn't solve anything on that front. Yeah, absolutely. Maybe the club is on the road to doing this further down the line.
It does solve some things, because it means you can't sell a ticket to a random person that you don't know who basically has the privilege of getting that ticket because they know you. That ticket, then, if you're in a position where you're giving someone a ticket for Newcastle at home on the 31st of August that you don't know now, that ticket should be going back to the club, if we're being perfectly honest. And then someone buys it off the club and is also able to get the credit, by the way.
Now, that's going to be so few cases. That's the point, isn't it? It's so few cases that's the case. That's going to be the thing.
People they didn't know last season, so why is that going to suddenly change? And the only people that they know that need the ticket are going to be people that they know.
I've no idea what you said. You said that they know a lot there. I didn't really follow it. But I look, will it solve that a slight degree? Yes, it will. But the majority of people will sort them out. So all that's happening is people are panicking now and going, I need to put anybody I've ever met on my friends and family list. So that's what most people are doing now, is panicking and going, I'm going to add as many friends and family as I possibly can. So and it'll be like a friend to a friend. And I think I understand the system correctly, that if somebody sent me a ticket, I could send it on to somebody else that's on my friends and family list. So that person that sent me the friends and family that I was on the friends and family list for would still be selling it to somebody they've never met before. It's just that I'll be sending it on because they were on my friends and family list. So the system's still the same. It just fucks members over. It's just bonkers.
I think I think it's 3 times. I think you're allowed to pass one ticket on, and I think that's.
I was going to
sort
say
of direction.
4, but yeah,
it's sort of that number. It is difficult. I know we keep sort of saying that. I think it is coming for season ticket holders, is what I would say. I would imagine. I think they'll sort of get there. They'll get to the point where they'll be looking at season tickets and people who are in this situation are just not going to games at all, and it'll be interesting how they tackle that if they do an amnesty and say, right, okay, well you've got one opportunity to get this ticket into the name of the person who's going, and then after that, it's sort of gone. That's something that might happen. I think what they're trying to do is actually increase access rather than restrict it, really. And I think they're trying to get to a situation where they want to be able people to be able to say it. They want to be selling more tickets, I think, and not a greater number of tickets, because there's only so many tickets at a stadium. What I mean is by the fact that, instead of, this idea of, well, it's my ticket and I'll give it to whoever I want once I've bought it, and I'll keep that credit, is actually, the club are in a situation where they're able to say, well, look, we can control, how and credits and how many go to people with 0 credits and how many people go to 13. I think they just like more of that, and I think what they are trying to do is make what they get there is going to be fairer. It's just they're going to go into a situation where inevitably some people are going to get pissed off because any change does that.
So philosophically, the argument becomes abolish season tickets.
It can be.
Get in!
It can be. They never will.
No. I'm sorry if I upset people there.
No, you haven't
trigger
upset
warnings.
Me.
Not you. I'm not worried about you.
There's an argument. What I would say is who's doing the flags.
No, exactly. This is where the whole thing sort of stems from and sort of moves itself along. I'm with you 100%. It is, and this is why it's philosophically, and I do mean philosophically, it's such a strong, such a difficult conversation, is that if you follow it all the way through to the end, that becomes not a valid endpoint, because I disagree with it, but the philosophical endpoint is the idea that everyone's got their own membership that attached. You can even game it out and say, hypothetically, all existing season ticket holders start with 19 credits from whatever season you abolish season tickets in inverted commas. They've got to go on, they've got to buy tickets on a case-by-case basis. They've got their 19 credits and they go from there, and they've got to make it happen. I'm not arguing for that. But my point is more that if we go on as you approach that path, the end point of that path is this. In the same way that, for instance, I always remember a remark that McKenna told me once when he was talking to Ian Eyre around ticket prices. And he said to Ian Eyre, all right, why don't... McKenna's argument was to lower ticket prices. But he walked into the meeting, he said to Ian Eyre, all right, let's make Liverpool Man United 200 quid a ticket. And Ian Eyre said, well, I'm not going to do that. And Jay said, right, so we agree in principle then that we agree that ticket prices should be capped. And all we're arguing about is where the cap is now. Philosophically, we therefore, because, and I agree with you on the flags, the banners, and certain aspects of the club and the way in which people view it, this is about where the line's drawn. And I think what's difficult is that there's some people who currently feel as though the line is drawn in a way that undermines them. And there's other people, and it does tend to be, in this instance, we mentioned away tickets and season ticket holders who aren't really impacted by that line. And then when this conversation happens, they're a bit like, I tell you what, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Let it all crack on over here. And I think that, and I'm pleased we've done this show, and I'm pleased we've done it in that way. But I think that is hard, isn't it, John? And I acknowledge, and in amongst all this, I really do acknowledge why it's hard for Liverpool. But at some point, someone's got to tear off a plaster that will be quite painful. Yeah. And at the minute, it feels like the painful plasters aren't the ones that get torn off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and look, Adam talked about touts before, and this is, they don't really say why they do stuff. And I've said this to people at Liverpool Football Club. I've always said, like, when you're talking about what you're going to do, you should say why you're doing it, really. And they don't, because, why would they listen to me? But I think, we were left to sort of, fill in the blanks ourselves a little bit, really.
We did ask Liverpool if someone wants to come on here, by the way.
Yeah,
You did. You took the time to do that. They
didn't, which we didn't say no. They're busy.
They've got a lot on.
And so I did invite someone from Liverpool, not to speak to Adam, by the way. Christ, I wouldn't put that on them. To speak privately to nice me with my nuance.
Nuance John, they call him.
What was I saying? Yeah, so we just assume that this is a thing to tackle touts, and this is where we always come back to. So when a system is brought into place that makes like Adam, makes it life worse for you, and then you go on certain ticketing websites that are advertising close to 1,000 tickets on sale for Liverpool Crystal Palace, starting at £175. I understand why people go, well, hang on, the touts seem to be fucking fine here. Do you know what I mean? So you've done this thing, you've brought it in, which is making my life worse, and the touts are literally laughing at you. They're selling the tickets at open site. It's like selling guns online. They're doing basically, aren't they?
Immediately as well, by the way. It was immediate that happened. Like basically immediately after the sale, people were great. I've got me 9 tickets on the go to the site. Just one thing going back onto what you're saying about the season ticket thing, Neil, is that one of my kind of issues is if they did to season ticket holders what they're doing to members now, there would be protests that would make the European Super League look like a fun day out that are on the streets by most people. And the vast majority of people, and this isn't a sly dig at Phil or anything like that, because I've already said it to him, if nothing else, but the vast majority of people, exactly, I'm not being sly about it. The vast majority of people who were like, it's fine, this, season ticket holders that don't make any difference to. That most people who are all fine with it are going, it's fine, this. Well, I'm not surprised you think that. Like, of course you don't, because it makes no difference to your life.
Wait till they come for us.
Exactly.
No, the flip side is,
they came for the members' tickets, and I said nothing, for I was not a season.
Well, the thing I would say, literally, and this is interesting because we talked a lot about the way last season worked, and there was more movement around the ground, and I think last season is an extreme season. By the way, if they're quoting the numbers from last season, in any front, both for season ticket holders and for members, I think last season was extreme for a variety of reasons. COVID played a massive part. There was the idea of people coming back, and there was the way in which what the structure ended up sort of encouraging. But the one thing I can say with certainty, and this is where I think this does get it, like, for instance, Phil sits in Phil's seat, certainly more so than the one that isn't even my seat that I was in last season. Phil sits in Phil's seat, and I think that is the thing as well, that there are season ticket holders, because what I don't want to sound like here is nobody sitting in the proper
my
seat.
season ticket's in my name, and I sit there every week.
No, you do, absolutely, yeah.
Admittedly, Craig's sitting in my wife's, but...
Less said about that, the better, on this public platform. As we go all the way through. Do we answer anything there?
We have fun.
Is this still TAW live? I feel like other things have happened. I'm not quite sure where we are at this point. That was a conversation that was very much had in good faith. If you've listened to it, I hope you've listened to it in good faith as well. I don't know if we've got any answers out of all of that, but there are a hell of a lot of questions. And then I think the people who work both for Liverpool and who do work around ticket forums are also aware of the fact that there is a hell of a lot of questions around it all. It's sort of a bit our jobs to do this sort of thing from time to time. No one knows if Matheus Nunez is happening or not. Matt Smith seems to say yes. James Pearce seems to say no. He's tall. He plays
Gutman knows who to believe.
Gutman does know who to believe. He's tall. He plays centre mid. It looks like he can hold the ball up quite nicely. I think if someone asked about midfielders at the very start of the show, the only way I see Liverpool adding another midfielder is if one goes, but they proved me wrong before. But the manager seemed very emphatic when he spoke to me, at least in front of people on cameras, I would sort of point out. But then, football managers, they get to say things that they don't necessarily believe or think all the way through. That's been TAW Live. We've covered Darwin Nunez. We've covered Matheus Nunez. It just happened then. We've had the inserts in there as well, where some people spoke to John some time ago in some instances, and there was all that then on the tickets. Sometimes the show goes this way, and there's sometimes the best ones. Take it easy.